Hi, this is Cheryl for the Cut at Home Design Team. Today I have a fun card for you. This features Heartfelt Creations Birds and Blooms. It's a stamp set. It's just absolutely fun and gorgeous. It has everything you need to make the branch and the birds and the flowers that go on top of it too. So all of this is there in the stamp sets. I'm using a little different technique with it today though. I'm watercoloring, but I'm not watercoloring with traditional watercolor paints. I'm actually going to use Distress inks. Distress inks work very well for watercoloring. They give you a nice finish, so this is another time where you can use supplies you already have to do something different. So your palette with the Distress inks is usually just going to be a clear acrylic block. Your other choice is to use one of the Teflon mats, a working mat, something like that. The problem is because they're not clear, you can't see when they have something else on them. This will give you the purer color. So first thing you need to do is stamp your image on a piece of watercolor paper. I'm using watercolor paper because it works better for watercolor purposes. I know people get concerned about it because watercolor paper costs a lot of money and it is more expensive. But if you watch, you can find some within your price range. Look for 90-pound watercolor paper. It's thinner, it's less expensive, it dries faster, it does all of those good things. Now my birds here I stamped using Distress ink. Gathered Twigs is the color, that's why I wrote Gathered Twigs at the bottom. But here I want to show you why Distress isn't quite so good for stamping the background image, because as soon as I apply water, you can see that that color begins to run. And this has been stamped for 3 or 4 hours now. So you want to use an ink other than your Distress ink to stamp with. Use one that's not water soluble and you'll be fine. I used VersaFine Smoky Gray for my flowers here, which I'm going to show you how to color here very quickly. I'm using Tattered Rose Distress ink. So all I'm going to do is face down on the cube. I'm going to get a little Tattered Rose on that acrylic block. I don't want my brush to be too wet while I do this, but my first step is to go over the flower outline and to just give it a little bit of water, show the Distress paint where I want it to go, or the Distress ink. Now I'm going to pick up a little ink with my wet brush and I'm just simply going to fill it in and color this entire flower. Now keep in mind when you're coloring with watercolors, what you see on the paper is always going to be darker than when it's wet than when it dries. So you have to make some allowances for that. If you have a really light image starting out, you may want to add a little color because it's going to lighten up on you. Now my accents, I'm going to use worn lipstick. So I do the same thing, just the cube face down on that acrylic block. I'm going to wet my brush a little, take a little of the excess water off on my hand, and grab a little bit here. Then I can get the center and the edges a little bit. Again, it looks darker now. It will dry to be about the same color as what you saw on my finished card. I'm using a number 2 round watercolor brush. Very easy to use. It's got a nice fine point on it, so I can get some fine detail right here around the sides of my flower, and I can finish it up with a nice circle there. So any of the colors that you have in Distress inks can be part of your palette colors. I used the worn lipstick and the Tattered Rose for my flowers here. I used both the Broken China and Tumbled Glass for my birds, along with Spiced Marmalade, Scattered Straw, Gathered Twigs was my branch here. And my greens are Bundled Sage and I can't remember the other, but it's really close, Peeled Paint. There we go. So very easy to use. Again, you've got lots of tools in your toolbox in your Distress inks. Make them work for you. It's a lot of fun. Thanks for watching. Bye.